Sit down, right there, don't go nowhere, little baby gon' shake that, 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 shit, yeah, I like that, bring that, right here, sit that, right there, don't go nowhere, say yeah, I like that, bring that, right here, sit that, right there, don't go nowhere.
Welcome back, we back with another reaction video. Today we are reacting to Stay Awake, Crime and Psychology. Mistress realizes the killer is her boyfriend. Oh, of her husband. Oh, okay. I'm assuming. Let's get right into it.
On Monday, July 18th, 2016, at about 9 a.m., a haunting 911 call was received by the Pima County Sheriff's Department.
911, do you have an emergency?
Yes, my fiance, I think, has been killed.
Why do you think that?
I just came to his house and it looked like there was bullet holes in the wall, and I just went up to the bedroom and he's just laying there and it looked like he had a bullet hole in his head.
Okay.
The entire homicide unit was called to action. Within minutes, officers arrived at the scene. They split up to accomplish two tasks: question the 911 caller and thoroughly inspect the crime scene. The 911 caller was a woman named Christina Trepanitis. Christina was visibly shaken up by the traumatizing scene that she had stumbled upon. Officers tried to calm her down to establish a basic timeline, starting from the previous day. It was a Sunday, and Christina and her fiancé Nick had spent the entire day together at her residence. He returned to his own residence at about 5:30 p.m. They spoke over the phone a few more times throughout that evening, with the final conversation taking place at around 8:30 p.m. Every morning, without fail, Nick would either text or call Christina on his way to work at about 6 a.m. So on Monday, when Christina didn't receive her usual lovey-dovey good morning from Nick, something immediately felt off. A few hours later, Nick was still not responding, and he also didn't show up for work. Christina had a bad feeling that something was wrong, so she drove to his house to check up on him. She searched around his house, only to be met with the horror scene in the master bedroom. She immediately dialed 911.
My fiance, I think, has been killed.
If this timeline was accurate, it meant that Nick had to have been killed at some point between their final call at 8:30 p.m. and when he leaves for work at 6 a.m. Detectives continued to gather as much information from Christina as possible, while another group of officers searched Nick's home. They started with the garage and found a bucket filled with water and some off-white carpet fibers. Moving inside, cleaning products were scattered all around the house, likely originating from the cabinet underneath the kitchen sink, which was left wide open. In the backyard, officers noted an A-frame ladder propped up against the wall, and they were also met with a surprise resident, a very friendly American Pit Bull Terrier wearing a collar with the name Smokey. They kept Smokey in the yard as they continued their search. Moving upstairs, the scene was much less inviting. Bullet holes lined the walls of the stairway, and at the top, a bloody foot poked out from behind the master bedroom door. They opened the door and found the naked body of 45-year-old Nicholas Morelos. He was riddled with bullets, 8 to be exact, one of them landing right in the middle of his forehead. The detectives' shoes stuck to the floor as they walked through the room, which strangely enough had a strong scent of mouthwash. Investigators noted that the bedroom window had been broken, and upon further inspection, blood was found on the windowsill. Blood was also found in several more spots throughout Nick's bedroom, including his closet and on the mouthwash cap in his ensuite bathroom. This wasn't even close to where the body was. Not only that, but a large portion of the area rug had clearly been cut out. The detectives' theory was that the killer had climbed onto the roof outside of Nick's bedroom and had taken their first few shots at Nick through the window. They then cut themselves on the glass when climbing into the bedroom and finished the job with several close-range gunshots. Since they were bleeding profusely all over Nick's bedroom, the killer desperately tried to cover their tracks by cutting out the blood-stained portion of the rug and cleaning the floor with a concoction of mouthwash and cleaning solvents. However, the killer wasn't meticulous enough, as several significant pieces of evidence were left behind, including the traces of blood throughout the room, as well as 11 bullet shell casings with a distinct 5-star stamp. But with all of these bullets fired, why did the neighbors not report the gunshots? Police canvassed the neighborhood with the hope of finding some key witnesses. They found one neighbor that could recall hearing a noise at about 4 a.m., but they weren't sure what it was. This led detectives to believe that 4 a.m. was the time of Nick's death, and that a silencer must have been used, since no one could distinguish the gunshots. Authorities wanted to know more about their victim, Nick Morelos, so they interviewed Nick's family, friends, and co-workers. Nick grew up outside of Tucson, Arizona with with his brother John. The two were born only 18 months apart and were joined at the hip for most of their lives. At 18, Nick joined the Marines and would end up fighting in Operation Desert Storm in the 90s. After being discharged, he came back a changed man, much more serious and tempered than before. Nick got married multiple times and even had a son, but after his failed marriages, he decided to focus on his job as an aircraft mechanic at Marana Aerospace Solutions.
You got an aeroplane? I'm there for you.
You can always do a little bit more.
Marana Aerospace Solutions.
Delivering more.
He was ultimately promoted to the director of maintenance in record time. He was known in his personal life to be tough yet caring, while those in his professional life found him to be brutally honest, critical, and intimidating, which rubbed some people the wrong way. For example, a safety inspector named James LePan Jr. was condemned by Nick for parking his car in a restricted area, and for using a personal computer while on the clock. James felt that during his time at Marana, Nick had targeted and bullied him from a position of managerial power.
We never got along. That's the thing.
However, despite submitting some complaints to HR, James didn't seem to take it too personally.
Anybody you know that wants to kick his ass?
Kick his ass? No.
While James didn't know anybody who would want to harm Nick, Nick's family had a couple of ideas. If there's one thing you should know about Nick, it's that he was a ladies' man who had a long history of romantic relationships, and not all of them were sunshine and rainbows. Detectives learned that Nick's second ex-wife once threatened to kill him. In another incident, one of Nick's ex-girlfriends broke into his house and he woke up to her watching him and his new girlfriend sleeping. The detectives looked into these leads, but they never panned out. However, the list of Nick's romantic endeavors didn't end there. Nick was engaged to his fiancée Christina, who we heard earlier during the 911 call. Christina worked with Nick at Marana Aerospace. But this wasn't the first time that Nick had chosen from the Marana dating pool. Over the years, Nick had several other relationships with women from his job, including Claudia Banks, who worked in administration.
He was a really hard worker.
The couple dated for 6 months, and Claudia had nothing but good things to say about Nick.
He was awesome. He really was.
What was more intriguing to the detectives was that Claudia moved in with Nick immediately after breaking up with her other boyfriend, Justin Skinner, who was an avid gun collector. Claudia tried cutting off all contact with Justin. However, shortly after the breakup, Claudia was driving with Nick when she noticed Justin was following them. Nick stopped and exited the vehicle, prepared for confrontation, at which point Justin sped off. Justin was also spotted occasionally lingering around her house on horseback, but this unsettling behavior eventually died down. Then, on the very same day that Nick's body was discovered, exactly 1 year since her breakup with Justin, Claudia had one more close encounter with him. She was out with her mom at a bar called the Circle S Saloon on the outskirts of Tucson.
Me and her went to Circle S.
Did he have any marks on him at all?
I saw him and pretty much walked right by. I really can't do anything.
The next day, she found a note from Justin on her front gate, sending his condolences.
Saying, hey, I heard what happened, and I'm really sorry. If you need anything, let me know.
Did Justin, triggered by seeing Claudia on their 1 year breakup anniversary, kill Nick with the hopes of getting her back? Justin was quickly becoming the prime suspect. But then, Claudia told detectives about another ex-girlfriend of Nick's, Jessica Stillwell.
Before me, he was dating a girl, Jessica. I don't know if you've spoken to her yet.
Jessica also worked at Marana Aerospace and dated Nick for about 6 months, living with him for a significant portion.
Yo, this man is literally getting with the females at his company, and during the probation period that you would have at a company, he's dating them and then breaking up with them. What the fuck? This nigga scheming. Where's HR? Something's wrong.
Portion of that time. As far as any outsiders could tell, the two seemed happy together. But one day, Nick was caught kissing Claudia in the break room. When he was confronted, he kicked Jessica and her kids out of the house, and Claudia moved in. A year after this dramatic switch-up, Nick was murdered. Also, in the days following his death, his niece and nephew took these pictures of someone snooping around Nick's house. The kids were convinced that it was Jessica. Investigators now knew of 2 scorned lovers that may have had a motive to kill Nick: Jessica and Claudia's ex-boyfriend, Justin. They reached out to Jessica to get her side of the story, starting from the beginning of her relationship with Nick.
Me and Nick, we'd been seeing each other for a while.
Me and my kids actually moved in with him. We lived with him for a few months up until we found out that he had been also seeing another girl, Claudia. He got caught making out with her in the break room. That next day is when he moved me and my kids out of his house. We didn't exactly end on good terms, but...
Detectives then asked Jessica to describe her Sunday, the day before Nick's death, leading into Monday morning.
What'd you do on Sunday?
Me and my daughter went over to my mom's house. I'd say probably about 3.
Okay. And then what time did you leave your mom's place?
I don't know, it was probably at least 7. Me and Shai went home and started watching a movie and I fell asleep.
Okay.
I think I had to be at work on 5 on Monday. But usually I get up 2 hours before I have to be at work, so I have time to take a shower and get ready, and then I have to take my dog out.
Jessica seemed to be very forthcoming with the detectives, so they asked her to come to the station for a more formal interview.
I know he was cheating on me with Claudia when he got caught with her, and when he kicked me out, and then her in. He kept denying it, so I drove by his house and took a picture of her truck back up front in front of him with it.
Some of the family identified you as being the one that was at the house.
It wasn't me.
Why are they saying it was you?
I have no idea. I haven't been to his house in almost a year.
Jessica is telling the truth here. The detectives ran the license plate of the woman in the photos and discovered that the vehicle belonged to a mother who was searching for her missing son.
Do you think that this should have happened to Nick? No, this shouldn't happen to anybody. Nobody deserves that.
Following this interview, Jessica handed over her cell phone so officers could analyze her location data. The phone was determined to be at her home and active between 3 a.m. when Jessica woke up and 5 a.m. when she left for work. Police had no solid evidence to prove that Jessica was involved in Nick's murder, so she was free to go. They then placed a call to scorned lover number 2, Justin Skinner.
I'd like to talk to you about an investigation involving Claudia.
I'm assuming this probably has to do with, I guess, your ex-boyfriend. I'm guessing we just heard about this, but is that what it's about?
Who is her ex-boyfriend?
I don't know.
Okay.
Following this call, detectives arranged to question him in person at his home.
So you were in a relationship with Claudia? When was that?
She left almost on the day a year ago.
Justin's breakup with Claudia was just as abrupt as Jessica's breakup with Nick. It was a heavy blow to recover from.
I never really expected it to go as south as it did, so I was really hurt by it. I was pretty broken up about it for like a long time, like 10 months. And then it all just stopped. Like all the bad stopped. It was awesome. I don't, really believe in God or whatever, but I was like, dude, just in case, I prayed. I was like, thank you.
When Justin was questioned about where he was the night of Nick's murder, his story matched what Claudia had shared with investigators. He said he was at the Circle S Saloon.
I got to Circle S at 6 o'clock, and then at midnight, I ended up leaving.
When you left, where did you go?
Home.
Video surveillance from Circle S corroborated Justin's timeline up until he left the bar. But there was no way to confirm his claim that he went straight home afterward. Justin was helpful with whatever information he could provide, except near the end of the interview when the detective noticed something peculiar.
I'm seeing a few scratches on your arm. How did those happen?
Landscaping.
When asked,
he laughed. Landscaping. Well, there is a cactus in that guy's backyard, but I think he got cooked by the glass, right?
Asked if they could take photos of his arm and collect a DNA sample, Justin refused. This immediately set off red flags for the detectives, but after a bit of coaxing, Justin cooperated.
That's fine. DNA, let's do it.
The DNA was promptly sent in for testing. Meanwhile, John, who eagerly wanted justice for his brother, decided to do some digging himself. He began talking to Nick's coworkers, probing for any information that might be useful. At one point, he mentioned to the HR director named Jeff Johnson that the perpetrator might have been cut while going through Nick's window. Soon after, Jeff called John, saying that someone he had a bad feeling about, someone who had filed a complaint against Nick in the past, had bandages on their left arm. That someone was James LePan.
We never got along, that's the thing.
Apparently, 11 days before Nick's murder, James stormed into Jeff's office, demanding that Nick face repercussions for abusing his managerial power. He said, "If you don't handle it, I have my own way of handling things," and immediately left the office. So, detectives met with James and interviewed him a second time. His alibi was that he had spent the Sunday with his family, going to bed around 9 p.m. and waking up at 5 a.m. the next morning, about an hour after Nick's time of death.
If I contact your wife, she's going to tell me this is where you were on Sunday.
I would hope so.
Okay.
There was nothing particularly notable about this interview, as James answered all the questions the detectives had. But before James was free to go, they inquired about his bandaged arm. He claimed that he had accidentally stepped into an access panel while working on a plane. He then fell against an uninsulated part of the plane wall, cutting himself on the exposed metal. Despite this reasonable explanation, James wouldn't allow the detectives to photograph his arm or obtain any DNA from him. Their hands were tied, and with no solid evidence to justify an arrest, the detectives had no choice but to let James go. However, moments after leaving the room, James returned and said that he wanted to tell the truth. He told detectives that he hadn't been completely transparent.
What was the part you were not forthcoming?
Jessica and I have slipped.
In other words, James and Jessica had an affair. Apparently, their affair didn't last long, as Jessica wanted to be more than just a mistress, but James refused to leave his family. In light of this information, detectives were eager to speak with James's wife, Serena, but James had already told her about the affair weeks prior.
I know he's been, fell off the marital bandwagon, so to speak.
The couple had agreed to work things out and were even signed up for marriage counseling. With his focus on repairing his marriage, detectives wondered if James was really the suspect that they thought he was. Serena's timeline of events even matched James's story.
You wouldn't try to be covering up for him for anything? No. Okay.
At this point, detectives were stumped. John, on the other hand, found himself with another stroke of luck. During his own investigation, he just so
Is John a PI or something? How's he doing this?
happened to reach out to a childhood friend who ran a machine and fabrication
Sherlock
shop.
Holmes.
To John's surprise, when he brought up James LePan as a potential suspect, his friend knew exactly who he was talking about. It turns out that a couple of months before the shooting, James had come into this man's shop looking for a tool to fix a silencer. This intel wasn't the only major breakthrough. The detectives decided to dissect James's story on how he injured his arm. They met with the HR director at Marana Aerospace to see if he knew about this work injury. He was aware of it and even offered to show the detectives where it happened. Everything seemed to line up with James's story until they noticed the uninsulated wall was actually fully insulated and finished with plastic panels. There was no exposed metal. With these new findings, detectives were able to obtain a search warrant for James's home. During their search, they found 18 boxes of .45 caliber ammo in the garage. The bullets were stamped with the same 5-star pattern as the shell casings at the crime scene. Inside the house, they found a box for a Para-Ordnance Black Ops Combat .45 caliber pistol. The box was empty, but this was believed to be the murder weapon. They also found another empty box for a silencer that would fit on the gun. Furthermore, in the back of the LePan family van, detectives found some off-white carpet fibers that matched the ones in Nick's garage and bedroom. Lastly, tucked away on the top shelf of James's closet, detectives discovered a pair of work pants with bloodstains on them. The only thing left to do was to bring James into custody. The search had taken place early in the morning, so James was carpooling to work when he was pulled over by the police. His carpool partner, of course, was Jessica. After slipping up and telling the officers that Jessica once told him where Nick lived, James pled the fifth and refused to answer any further questions without the presence of a lawyer. Thankfully, authorities didn't need him to cooperate in order to strengthen their case further. They were able to match the blood found on Nick's windowsill and mouthwash cap to James's DNA profile, and the blood found on James's pants came back to match Nick's DNA. Along with these findings, detectives decided to interrogate Jessica once again.
Did you and James ever have a private conversation about Nick's murder?
No.
He's saying that you showed him where the house was at.
I've never taken him anywhere near there.
So now is your opportunity to let it out.
She allowed the detectives to search through her phone, where they recovered several suspicious text messages exchanged with James. The night before the shooting, at 6:36 p.m., James texted, "Pitbull," to which Jessica replied, "His dog." His name is Smokey. Then, at 8:40 p.m., James instructed Jessica, delete all my text conversations with you. When confronted with these texts, Jessica claimed that it was taken out of context and that she was talking to James about getting a dog similar to Smokey for her daughter. But the detectives weren't buying it. To them, the more plausible explanation was that Jessica was feeding James information that could help him execute his assassination. They believed it wasn't just a coincidence that the dog was outside when they arrived at the scene. Leading up to his trial, the one thing James had going for him was his alibi, that he went to bed at 9 p.m. and slept all the way through the night until 5 a.m. After all, this was corroborated by his wife, Serena. However, this too would be stripped away. In a surprising turn of events, Serena reached out to the prosecution team, saying that she had a new story to tell them. Naturally, they brought her in for another interview.
When you talked to police previously,
I lied.
Okay.
Are these not charges? Like, you obstructing justice.
What did you lie about?
The fact that he had left the house, because he did.
While this may seem like an unusual and sudden change of heart, this act of standing up for herself was actually years in the making. Serena met James at a weekly dance class. She admired his confidence and persistence and was inevitably swept off her feet. They eventually got married and had 2 children. But things took a turn for the worse when James's father died about a year into their marriage. His mental health deteriorated and James's behavior changed. He quickly became controlling and unpredictable. On one occasion, Serena wanted to check on their children in the middle of an argument, but James grabbed her, preventing her from leaving the room. He then said, "We're finishing this discussion. The children are replaceable. We can make more. I'm not."
No, you're definitely replaceable. It's called divorce, little nigga. Hey, what he got going? Little buddy must be slow.
More recently, he had even brought this not-so-secret mistress, Jessica, over for dinner one night and made Serena cook for her. Serena had plenty of time to reflect on moments like these while James sat in jail awaiting his trial. One evening, while on a work trip, she was sitting in her hotel room watching a Lifetime movie about an abusive relationship. She realized that if she didn't stand up for herself, the cycle of abuse would continue. So, she told detectives what actually happened the night that Nick was murdered. They went to bed at 9 p.m., but James suddenly got up and left the house. Serena dozed off and woke up in the middle of the night with James back in bed. She fell asleep once more, and when she woke up in the morning, James was gone again. He then came home while she was showering, and his arm was covered in blood. In a matter-of-fact tone, he then said, "I was home all night, and we worked out this morning." Detectives now had all of the pieces of the puzzle to confidently prosecute James.
Well, the trial is underway for a man charged in a 2016 murder. James Michael Lappin Jr. is accused of killing 35-year-old Nicholas Morelos inside his home on the northwest side.
News 4 Tucson's Danelle Confair explains what happened inside the courtroom.
The prosecution and defense laid out opening statements today, but the most chilling testimony was from the victim's fiance. Christina Trepanitis is the one who found Nicholas Morelos' body in July of 2016. On the stand today, she says she got worried when Morelos didn't respond to her calls or texts that morning, so she drove to his home to check on him.
And I looked at him for a second and he was calling his name, and I could see that the blood was already dry and that he was probably gone. And I just backed up and just went down the stairs and called 911 right away.
Both the victim and Lapon Jr. worked at the Pinal Air Park in Marana. The prosecution says that Lapon started having an affair with a woman from work after the victim had broken up with her.
James Lapon snuck into Nick Morales' backyard.
My buddy weird.
And climbed onto the roof of the patio outside of Nick's bedroom window. And with a .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol, the defendant fired shots into Nick's bedroom.
She says Lapon cut his arm on glass from the window, leaving behind a trail of blood. But the defense says the DNA doesn't prove his client's guilt.
The prosecution swept the defense, and when it came time for deliberations, the jury didn't need long to reach a verdict.
We, the jury, do find the defendant, James Lapon, guilty of the offense first-degree murder.
James Lapin Jr. was found guilty of burglary and the first-degree murder of Nicholas Morelos. He was...
Hold on. Burglary? Oh, because he broke in? I said, what he steal? But yeah, I guess.
Sentenced to life in prison and currently resides in the Arizona Department of Corrections. As for James and Serena's relationship, their divorce was finalized in 2019. Jessica Stilwell was never charged for her involvement in the murder of Nicholas Morelos.
What? I guess it wasn't enough evidence to tie her to. I mean, it was just text messages, but like, I guess. It's sad Nick had to go through all this, but I ain't gonna lie. Nick, you shouldn't have had all them. It's too many. Like, but you had too many women, gang. And I don't know if that really cooked you, but too many people know where you stay at. That would have really been the main problem. Like, and niggas hate you. Oh yeah, bro. That might be how you lose your life. Rest in peace to Nick though. This is the end of the video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and share your thoughts on the video in the comment section below. Also, hit the notification bell so you stay up to date when I drop videos on this channel. Stay safe, y'all. Catch you in the next one.
I'm a cowboy, can't stop me, ain't till it's to come. All this pain got me feeling the compass. See, this can't turn me into a monster. Hey, I'm a cowboy, can't stop me, till it's to come. All this pain got me feeling the compass. See, this can't turn me into a monster. I'm a cowboy, can't stop. Hey, all that pain got me feeling jaded. Many with your rope in the making. Still plugged into the mix, but lagging out before the update. Drop back in, different time, same location.